Welcome friends and fellow lore scholars to a Riches and Liches remaster of the Nine Hells series, Volume 6, Outlanders in Hell. This remaster is a streamlined and polished cut to remove any unnecessary dialogue, tighten up the audio, and add a significant amount of new HD art, all resulting in what I think you will find to be a more cohesive and enjoyable experience. Thank you for your support. And if you'd like to help keep these videos sponsor-free, please consider subscribing or checking out the links below to my free Patreon. The Nine Hells of Baator are teeming with a diverse world of infernal fiends, many devils, forgotten to time and version, but all covering a fascinating range of shapes, sizes, ranks, and responsibilities. We are mining the deepest depths of hidden lore and obscure texts as we focus today's discovery on those devils that are native to the Nine Hells, yet not part of its rigid hierarchy. The who and the why of these atypical Baatezu, the Outlander devils of the Nine Hells, right now on Riches and Liches. Let's take just a moment and define what I'm calling these Outlanders of Hell, and in doing so make a clarifying distinction between an Outlander and an outsider. First, an outsider is a well-established Dungeons & Dragons term that simply defines any non-elemental creature that originates from any of the outer planes, i.e. not from the material plane. So all the devils, as well as the angels, the demons, the daemons, and all outer plane beings are in fact outsiders. But we are doing something that to my knowledge has never been done before, certainly not in any official capacity, and that's the discovery and cataloging of every devil type ever officially published and then placing them in a hierarchy. And with well over 60 devils in total, I required a term to properly categorize those devils that generally or typically don't align to the strict hierarchy of Baator, specifically as it relates to the promotion and demotion chain. For a myriad of reasons, from serious versioning issues to their unique place or role in Baator, these Outlanders of Hell, as I'm calling them, are still absolutely 100% fiendish devils native to the Nine Hells. However, by placing these fiends as Outlanders, we're stating that we will generally not find these devils along any common or typical promotion path for a Baatezu seeking increased power and station in these Nine Hells, i.e. the common practice and process of promotion. With the understanding that Asmodeus and his archdevils certainly possess the power to turn any one devil into another, including an Outlander, whenever they desire, despite what I or any sourcebook states, these Outlander fiends often fulfill more specialized roles, while yet others serve as a hierarchical dead end, a form of punishment or damnation, whether temporary or permanent, for failing their infernal masters. And there are also approximately a dozen quasi-devil-like fiends, almost devils if you will, that came up in my research but for one reason or another simply do not qualify or are excluded from these volumes. Many of these are clearly not true Baatezu, while others were excluded for other valid reasons. However, for the sake of completeness, here is a reference list with sources in case you want to do some additional research on your own, perhaps adding these to your world or your encounters. While I leave this up for a few moments so you can take a look, I also want to let you know that I'll have this list over on my Patreon as a post you can grab even on the free tier. So if you think that might be something that you could use as a handy but in-depth reference, check out my Patreon that, as I said, you can join for free. Links below. As we end this chapter, I also want to call your attention to one of these not-quite devils of particular note. If you've not seen it yet, you might want to check out one of my 2 videos dedicated to the story and lore of the Stitch Devil. They have a pretty cool backstory, and I had some very unique homebrew ideas pop into my head during my research that I've added to those volumes. So if you're interested in the very unique Stitch Devil with its super interesting ties into the Nine Hells, as well as some really fun homebrew, check out the links in the show notes and above you right about now. While one of the primary goals for this series at large is to create the single version agnostic master hierarchy for all the devil types, which we'll do in Volume 7, We've established the Outlander devils being covered today fall outside of that hierarchy. But I would really like to stress here that this should not diminish the role or impact these devils can have in your world-building efforts. In fact, many of these Baatezu are fascinating, have interesting backstories, compelling mechanics, and fill specialized roles that would only be undermined if they were part of the rank and file hierarchy. They belong as Outlanders and excel as Outlanders. I would go so far as to argue that it is because they are Outlanders, a bit more obscure, and that many play a very unique role in the canonical lore of the Nine Hells that make them some of the best encounters for your world. So I hope you'll keep that in mind as we begin our profiling of these forgotten fiends. That said, we start our comprehensive list of Baatezu Outlanders with some of the most obscure, mere footnotes in the history of fiends, 5 little-known Hellforged devil types introduced in Dragon Magazine, number 306. And these fiends were initially anything but, originally constructs created by a duke named Arendeus from various natural materials, with an intent to be a hellish storage mechanism to house infernal souls doomed to eternal torment. Although the narrative surrounding Arendeus and his curse is certainly noteworthy, perhaps even worthy of a future video, it falls outside this volume's purview. Nonetheless, as part of the Arendeus story, we learn that these constructs evolved into genuine fiendish entities, obeying the rigid, lawful evil codes of hell, thereby serving as effective enforcers and executioners for the more potent infernal authorities of the Nine Hells. The weakest of the lot is the Sand Devil, a challenge rating 3 3rd edition fiend. They are used as spies for their archdevil masters and have the unique ability to disperse the sand that makes their form, allowing them to hide almost anywhere. They generally try to avoid combat, preferring to gather intel and then silently depart. Next up, we have the Glass Devil, a CR4 fiend. These nearly invisible devils also serve as spies and watchers of the Hellforged legions, most often used in the reporting on the progress of the Blood War. They have a humanoid body made of magical transparent glass, but unlike the Sand Devils, they are more likely to engage in combat, using deadly razor-sharp glass claws to inflict deadly slashing damage. I see these as the melee version of a glass cannon. Third in our cadre of Hellforged fiends is the CR6 Obsidian Devil. Known for its brutal nature and strict adherence to the orders of its master, very aggressive and combat-prone. These humanoid devils are composed of blocky and jagged obsidian stone. It is said that these devils often can be seen serving in small groups as enforcement agents of the laws of hell, and have also been dispatched upon the material plane to capture mortals who break their Faustian pacts. The slightly more powerful and definitely not spy-worthy Coal Devil is next. Listed as a CR7 fiend, they are comprised of knobby, twisted chunks of coal with large, battering fists, continually engulfed in flames and thick black smoke. Stealthy they are not. They do, however, have the ability to focus their flames once every D4 rounds in a 30-foot cone, so watch out for this blast furnace of a devil. Last up in our Hellforged Devil group is the Lead Devil, listed as a CR13 fiend, and you can probably tell from its name it's hallmarked by a high AC, as well as its ponderous and slow movements. In addition to attacking with its massive lead fists, one of the more prominent skills is their ability to use Hell's Embrace to grapple an opponent and immediately use Dimension Door to move 500 feet away to a point they can see, with the opponent still in its grasp. While I personally think the story of Arendeus is likely more compelling and perhaps enhancing to the story of these "don't call me a golem with a new hellish label" set of Hellforged devils, nonetheless they exist across the various layers of hell and serve some obscure but versatile roles. However, I started with these devils as a clear example of the fiends that are best categorized as Outlanders. Now, moving on from these Hellforged constructs turned fiend to something a bit more ethereal, and personally, one of my favorite Outlanders, another obscure fiend that I think deserves a little more love. In the bleakest shadows of the mortal realm, and introduced back in the 2nd edition book Guide to Hell, the Mezzikim are the tortured and sometimes punished souls of a Baatezu, a specialized fiendish instrument of the greater devils. The Mezzikim exist to follow explicit orders from their masters, emerging upon the material plane to follow instruction. They are damned and desolate banished to the mortal realm until redeemed. Veiled from mortal eyes, they drift invisible and unseen like haunting specters, their forms insubstantial, mere ethereal threads woven into the fabric of darkness. But these ghostly devils, though intangible and neither able to attack or be attacked, are not without power of purpose, for they have the ability to seize hold of mortal vessels, possessing them with their sinister intent. From deep within their victims, they follow the instruction of their Baatezu masters, perhaps to sow seeds of sickness or war, poisoning the mind, or perhaps just to gather information. But in the darkest of moments, they may also potentially claim the mortal life as a vile conquest. Beware the Mezzikim, their presence belies a nefarious infernal power, a ghostly facade they wear, for true might eludes them in their ethereal state. Nonetheless, these wretched souls thrive in the art of suffering, seeking a return to their former station, weaving dread and despair among any mortal they may claim. Griley tells us that these Mezzikim fiends come to be when archdevils transform a lower fiend, generally a least devil such as a lemure, or punish a lesser or greater fiend. But Mezzikim are also rumored to be created by the use of a special ritual performed upon a soul coin, a guarded and veiled secret known only to select archdevils. Once transformed, the Mezzikim's master will then provide explicit directives that are followed to the letter, the soul looking to prove itself in hopes of a more permanent promotion or redemption from a previous failing. The Mezzikim are one of the devils I went back and forth on regarding its placement as either an outlander or potentially as part of the rank and file hierarchy of a least devil. But ultimately, while these ethereal fiends most definitely can be created through least devil promotion, and I particularly like the idea of using a soul coin, which by the way is an obvious homebrew of my own since the Mezzikim is a 2nd edition fiend and soul coins are a 5th edition mechanic. Regardless, their relative obscurity to most scholars and world builders, along with their specialized role and a singular purpose for existing in the first place, clearly tell me that they are intended to be temporary or at least a punished state only, a form that merely exists as an instrument to be used by greater devils, and not really a form that a soul would exist in for any extended period, unless forever punished, of course. Either way, that marks the Mezzikim as a very cool, but still Outlander devil. Question: what would you do if a giant wasp the size of a Honda Civic came thrusting down upon you with its stinger poised to plunge into your mortal flesh? Yeah, me too. That is the horrifying sight and situation you will face if you ever come upon the Advespa. This official 3E infernal devil wasp is innately cruel, with a debilitating poison and the ability to grapple and carry any creature or mortal that is at least one size smaller than its already large self. But what really makes these hellish insects so horrifying is not simply their size. No, the truly unsettling characteristic of these she-devils is the grotesque amalgamation of a disfigured and contorted female human face, fused onto the oversized body of this stinging infernal wasp. Pure nightmare fuel, if you ask me, and one of the more frightening challenge rating 3 devils you can face, especially since they often travel in squadrons of 2 to 5. Rumored to have their own infernal hive hierarchy, which is indicated by yet undeciphered markings on their lower abdomen, the female-only Advespa patrol the hellish skies, preferring the warmer layers, and often are found under the command of a greater devil. One particular common scenario has a small squad of 3 or 4 Advespas in the service of an Omnizu patrolling along the river Styx, who use these wasp devils to help capture escaped souls or violators of the strict travel laws within the Hells. While these Outlander fiendish wasp-like insects can be found in many typical colors such as yellow, red, and orange, all with some form of black, they are often also entirely black, taking on a look as if carved from obsidian stone. Existing in a little-known, at least to us mortals, but separate hierarchy of their own, the CR3 Advespa devils are well positioned as Outlander devils, and are definitely an intriguing fiend to world build and or homebrew with, especially if a group of adventurers were to set out on a quest in order to discover more about their own social order and origins. That would make a great adventure hook. and I'm glad I was able to sneak a small homebrew element into this volume. Since we are on the topic of fiendish stinging insects, let's pivot just a few degrees and talk about another Outlander that shares a lot of commonalities with the Advespa, while still clearly being a distinct devil on its own. Not to be confused with the female-only Advespa, the Hellwasp devils belong to an entirely different colony and actually more clearly defined origin. Originating from the 4th edition Monster Manual 3, Hellwasps have the unique distinction of at one time actually being Tanar'ri demons of the Abyss. Now, 4th edition always had a tendency to leave large gaps in their lore, and nothing changes here, as all we are told is that the Hellwasps were once in the service of a wasp-like demon lord. We're given no actual specifics. However, as part of an active battle in the Eternal Blood War, the Archduchess Glazia defeated this no-name demon lord, and its curious spawn of demon wasps flocked to her as their new queen. And so Glazia brought them back to the Nine Hells, where she transformed them into devils, making them shock troops and personal bodyguards. These Hellwasps have now formed a large colony that makes its home in the Garden of Delights on Malbolge. We are told they are ruthless and logical, with an alien-like intelligence, and all live to serve the whims of their queen, the unwavering implement of Glazia's will, as the Hellwasps see service to Glazia as both an honor and a reward. In battle, the Hellwasp devils operate as a unit to kill or grab their enemies. Colony guards swarm the battlefield, stabbing at enemies with their stingers, while the larger Hellwasp devils swoop in from behind, attempting to pierce foes and carry them off, not unlike the Advespa. However, the Hellwasp devils will most generally only be found outside of the 6th layer if they are accompanying Glazia as her personal bodyguards, or either on a mission for their queen or on loan to one of Glazia's allies. While serving a far different and more personal role in the Nine Hells, Glazia's infernal insects known as the Hellwasps are still clearly Outlander devils that fall outside any normal progression or ranked hierarchy. To those mortal scholars who often document and parrot a prevailing wisdom that the lowly Lemure devil holds the most unfortunate of distinction, being the worst possible destination for a soul forever bound to these infernal hells, the Slime Devil would like a word. Another of the 4th edition exclusive fiends, these only vaguely humanoid-shaped abominations of sludge and hate might easily be confused with the lowly and least Lemures, if not for the contrasting blackness that makes up their own formless, abhorrent shapes. But their blob-like misshapen visual is truly where any similarities end. While Lemures are pathetic-looking creatures of very little power, the Slime Devil only looks pathetic, as they are in fact quite a bit more powerful than any of the least devils. Not nearly as well-known and generally confined to the 3rd layer of Hell, the Slime Devils act as spies and interrogators, primarily for the Archdevil Mammon. And it is in their creation myth that we've determined why the Slime Devil is considered an Outlander devil, one directly influenced by Mammon's own intentional design. You see, unlike most devils that rise and fall within a hierarchy of any mortal soul damned to these hells, Mammon is instead very selective in the types of souls that are bound to this horrific fate. Indeed, this forever life as a slime devil in service of Mammon comes to be through the acquisition of the corrupt souls of mortal spies and inquisitors who come to their end in the Nine Hells and are then drawn to the fetid swamps of the 3rd layer of Hell. Now filled with arrogance and hate, yet also retaining some vestiges of the power and skill in the art of subterfuge they held as mortals, these souls found across all 9 layers are pulled indelibly toward Minneros until coming to rest in Mammon's swamps. There, each soul's torrent of agony and emotion seeps into the acidic black sludge, and from it, and with the power of the Archdevil, a Slime Devil and a new agent of Minneros emerges. Notwithstanding my overarching statement that an Archdevil, and certainly Asmodeus himself, can create, promote, and demote any devil to any other devil at will, rules be damned. It is understood, however, and generally held true, that the Slime Devils are universally forever bound to this wretched form, with no hope of promotion to something less icky. Score 1 for the Lemure, at least they have hope. On the encounter and combat side of the ledger, The most devastating facet of the Slime Devil might be its ability to engulf a creature and pull thoughts directly from its mind. Favoring ambush over direct assault, Slime Devils will often lurk near valuable enemy targets, patiently waiting and watching for an opening. And at an opportune moment, the Slime Devil then strikes, pulling its victim close, engulfing its prey, and scouring its mind for valuable information. This very unique skill makes these otherwise abhorrent devils a valuable and sought-after commodity to the denizens of the Nine Hells, thus providing the insufferable and greedy Mammon yet another way to enrich his overflowing coffers. In the labyrinthine corridors of war rooms and royal courts, a rare, cunning entity weaves its insidious tapestry of manipulation, our next Outlander, the Vizier Devil. Another of the 4th edition devils and a fiend that is almost never seen within the gates of perdition from which it originates, this infernal diplomat is most often dispatched to mortal realms beyond the Nine Hells. Nearly indistinguishable from that of a mortal tiefling, the Vizier Devil works insidiously, slithering into the governments of men, elven enclaves, and even deep into the stone depths of dwarven fortresses and the brutish war camps of orcish tribes. Unassuming yet strangely alluring, the Vizier Devil always presents itself as a valuable advisor, a counselor possessed of uncommon insight and knowledge. Yet the counsel it offers is a poisoned chalice of sinister intent, its true aim to shepherd mortal souls down the darkened path beyond the gates of the Nine Hells. Nothing like the sycophantic cowardly imps, the Vizier Devil is a creature of audacious ambition and unparalleled political acumen. It offers solutions and guidance so compelling as to even seem virtuous at first glance, but the Devil's recommendations are but a trap, a snare that slowly, silently, and inexorably unravels into a mire of moral decay. Those who hear its sage words often consider themselves blessed, ignorant of the Vizier Devil's unseen but true allegiance to the Nine Hells. Even those who suspect they are being counseled by something less than holy are often too enthralled or compromised to cut the infernal strings. Ever avoidant of the chaos and bloodlust of direct combat, the Vizier Devil is a master strategist, shaping the field of battle from behind fortified lines. It retains a facade of a mere spellcaster, letting its allies believe that it is they who lead, even as it pulls their strings from the shadows. In the infernal chessboard of its existence, the Vizier Devil always plans several moves ahead. It is a creature of contingencies. Should the tides turn against it, it has backup plans nested within backup plans, escape routes elaborately devised, and ways to summon reinforcements from the very bowels of hell itself. In the most dire of circumstances, it will break character and go on the offensive, if only to secure the one thing it values above all others, its own dark existence. To engage a Vizier is to walk on the edge of damnation, unknowingly teetering on a precipice that overlooks the eternal fires of Baator. While it may seem like a beacon of reason in a world of chaos, remember, all roads with this Outlander Devil end with another soul fed to the infernal machine. Birthed in the blood-soaked fields of Avernus, we have our next Outlander. The Rage Devil is a 4th edition only, brutal horror, bred solely for the violence of the Blood War and the extermination of the Tanar'ri. Born from a twisted experiment that married the Narzugon essence with demonic ichor, these rampage-loving entities emerged initially as uncontrollable and frenzied abominations of chaos, residing far outside the lawful nature of the Nine Hells. It was only through a ritualistic use of supernal hieroglyphic script, that is a language of the gods, one that mortals are incapable of learning, and the use of runes of distilled rage that quelled the inherently chaotic dispositions of the Rage Devil, allowing them to evolve into the true Devil Outlanders they are today. Cloaked in a carapace of stone-like skin, Rage Devils are hulking monstrosities covered in these supernal and arcane runic glyphs. And these etched symbols are not mere ornamentation, but functional war runes that ignite to life, their magic eroding an enemy's resistance in the lust of battle. Boasting of fearless, raw power, their mighty visage alone is a manifestation of their unbridled fury. Even as a lawful evil fiend, The Rage Devil's existence is one of perpetual strife. Their only joy is a dark ecstasy derived solely from the smell of enemy blood and a weakening resolve under the weight of their crushing attacks. In combat, they are relentless juggernauts, offering no quarter, no pause, just an unyielding onslaught of fiendish muscle and stone. Their pleasure in battle is almost childlike, an exuberance wholly out of place in their terrible form. Built of a singular purpose, the hunting of Tanar'ri, these marauders now roam the ashen wasteland of Avernus when not engaged in the Blood War, seeking foes of any origin. While they are ever inclined to respect and follow Narzagon into battle, the Hell Knights themselves see these brutes only as expendable instruments of war. Often Rage Devils are paired with Maragon or Legion Devils, where they take perverse delight in watching them fall in waves to the crucible of combat. Rarely seen in the mortal realms, a Rage Devil abroad is almost certainly under the yoke of an infernal warlock or a power-mad king. Though occasionally summoned by diabolical cults for vendettas or vendettas in the making, that ends more often than not in regret, as controlling a Rage Devil is an exercise in temerity, as a summoner's failure to maintain a firm grip on this furious devil's leash could result in absolute destruction. This Outlander is a true paradox, born of demonic and chaotic fury, yet existing as a fiendish, lawful instrument and true Baatezu, an unhinged war machine on one hand and a stoic guardian of Hell's front door on the other. Governed by war runes that both define and confine them, the Rage Devil is a clear Outlander of Hell and a monolith of contradiction and unbridled rage. I have already created a full lore video on the Gulthir, so we won't spend a lot of time on this demoted and disgraced but still formidable devil. Unlike other demoted devils like Lemurs and Nuparibos, Gulthirs are former greater devils such as Pit Fiends and even named devils who have somehow failed their superior and have thus taken this form as punishment. First appearing in the 3rd edition Monster Manual 5, the CR6 Gulthir looks more like an undead graveyard nightmare than your standard devil. Seriously, you'd think you'd stumbled into a haunted house rather than hell when looking at these guys. But don't underestimate them. These aren't your run-of-the-mill demoted devils. They're towering figures, reaching up to 12 feet tall. Yeah, they look like zombie pushovers, but don't let that look throw you off. They're pretty deadly. Easily identifiable by their undead looks, their saggy, torn skin and diseased, tumor-ridden skulls. But what really sets them apart is their terrifying, unhinged jaws that can stretch wide enough to swallow you whole. Yeah, let that sink in. As a demoted, punished form of devil, they clearly fall outside of the normal hierarchy, but they are maniacally driven for a redemption story, and honestly they offer some unique encounter opportunities you don't want to miss. I really enjoyed profiling this unique Gulthir, and I kind of went hard on some fun homebrew in that spotlight video. So if you're up for more lore and some homebrew on the Gulthir, check out the full video, link in the show notes. Our next Outlander is a devil I nearly missed and one that I knew next to nothing about prior to my research for this volume. The Guardian Devil, originating from the 3rd edition sourcebook Dangerous Denizens, Monsters of Talene, represents a unique archetype of fiend. Standing at an imposing 9 feet and endowed with a robust, muscular physique, these devils present an overtly intimidating visage. However, their most salient characteristic is perhaps their unswerving loyalty and absolute obedience to their superiors, generally the greater devils. Tasked with safeguarding crucial assets, such as structures, portals, or strategic locations, the Guardian Devil exhibits an uncommon blend of physical prowess and yet unyielding allegiance. You will always find them adorned with unchained manacles made of platinum on their wrists and ankles, symbolic of their commitment to subservience, and each of their hands end in razor-sharp talons, indicative of their combat readiness. Oh, and did I mention that they breathe fire? Yeah, just like a red dragon. I mean, it's limited to 3 times per day and in a 30-foot cone, so not really like a red dragon, but these guys are a legit challenge rating 8 fiend. Distinctive features include thick horns and a wide, brutish jaw. Their hide-like skin, which varies in hue from burnished reds to darker shades of browns and even black, is etched and scarred, a testament to the Guardian Devil's battle prowess and its experience. They just really look like they're ready to mix it up. In keeping with their subservience, if found in groups of 2 or more, they always adhere to a strict chain of command without the Machiavellian power plays often observed amongst the greater Baatezu. The Guardian Devil epitomizes the quintessential obedient, infernal minion, entrusted by higher-ranking devils to execute their commands unflinchingly. This attribute, coupled with their formidable physical characteristics, makes them a favored choice for defensive roles within the infernal ranks. So little lore has been published on this devil that it makes for a pretty blank homebrew canvas, perhaps worthy of a future Homebrew Vault episode. Next up, we have another crystal clear example of why we need the Outlander category. This fiend, called the Jerul in its infernal tongue, or Death Devil when translated to common, is a largely unknown Baatezu introduced in Dragon Magazine number 353, where not a ton of information exists, but let's profile what we do have. Depicted as a fusion of a large, skeletal body with a vulture's head, clad in Grim Reaper-esque billowing black robes and an elongated scythe, blade, or even a whip, the Jerul has sunken eyes and 4 withered arms ending in terrifying claws. These nearly forgotten winged fiends stand approximately 10 feet tall, weigh in at over 500 pounds, and perform many of the same roles as other tortured devils that exist across Baator, such as the more familiar Gulthir, Xerfilstyx, and Chitons, all of which are profiled in Volume 7. The difference is the Jerul generally conduct their torturing on the fugue plane before returning to the Nine Hells with the fruits of their terrifying labors. Often referred to as tormentors of the faithless, Jerul devils are known to both delight and excel in the torture and punishment of spirits of the false, and when in combat, prefer to engage in physical attacks whenever possible, using their ability to teleport in melee range for quick strikes and doing so at will. While not listed anywhere in any published hierarchy and with only minimal official ancient texts on their history, the Jerul, this Death Devil, is intriguing to be sure. And with a 3rd edition challenge rating of 11 and some formidable powers, the Jerul would likely slot somewhere in the upper tier of the lesser devil ranks, in line with the Oceloths and Chitons of the Nine Hells. With its billowing black tattered robe and Grim Reaper-esque scythe, the Death Devil is a winged, terrifying fiend that might be among the most obscure, which of course makes it not only an obvious Outlander devil, but perhaps a prime candidate for some creative homebrew at your table, or mine. Continuing our power climb of Outlander devils, we have the Logokron, which were a bit of a late addition for this volume, and I must confess that this, along with the Guardian Devil, were the 2 devils going into my research I knew the least about. In fact, I almost missed this fiend's discovery entirely, as the only known official source I could find was in the 3rd edition book, Tome of Magic, which was not part of my initial research sourcebook list, and I believe they're exclusive to the 3rd edition, neither appearing before or after. However, I have since learned that the Logokron may also be mentioned in some Eberron references, so there may exist some additional lore in those specific resource books related to Eberron that I did not check. Regardless, they're a very interesting fiend, large, muscular, armored, and with 4 arms, each holding a powerful and bloodied halberd. This powerful CR-14 fiend is definitely an outlier. As you likely noticed in the associated images I provided, the Logokron, along with the Jerul, were a tough devil to represent visually, not only because of its 4 arms, which presents a challenge in and of itself, but specific to the Logokron was a most distinctive aesthetic, the one thing that really sets this devil apart from any other. I'm talking about its signature look, the tongue. That's right, the Logokron is best known for an unraveling, several feet long purple tongue, unfurled and hanging out of their mouth with unique to each fiend complex runic symbols carved directly into the tongue's flesh. Despite their brutish appearance, they're actually very intelligent, able to wield true name magic, which often finds them blurring the line of the lawful evil code of the Baatezu, and they use this magic specific to 3rd edition to manipulate lesser devils into servitude. Given their obscurity of lore and history, I feel pretty safe in saying that the Logokron devil checks all the boxes to be categorized as an Outlander to Hell. Introduced in the 3rd edition Monster Manual 5, the Remmanon is a strangely unique occult-like fiend. Also known as a devil of discord, Remmanon devils take the form of thin humanoid devils with soulless eyes and the bodily markings of torment and malevolent cruelty. They possess a distinct look of a powerful dark entity, can often be found hovering about as their primary form of mobility, and are probably the closest thing Wizards or even TSR ever came to making a Hellraiser-type devil. Upon their body you will find numerous piercings consisting of hooks, spikes, barbs, and even chains that are draped from its flesh. Upon these piercings you will find small scraps of paper magically attached, each containing the name of a mortal who has entered into a Faustian pact with the Remmanon. Remmanon devils often bear tattoos of various occult and unholy symbology, and have large, curved ram-like horns in various shades, ranging from browns and grays to deep blacks. Their driving motivation and purpose is to sow distrust among mortals, doing so mostly through creating and leveraging dark cults with their insidious ideals of lust, greed, and jealousy. A supremely arrogant devil, even by the high standards of the Baatezu, the Devil of Discord actively looks to avoid physical combat, preferring to insulate themselves with fiendish minions and mortal cultists nearly at all times. They command respect and tirelessly wander the plains, seeking new contracts and subjugation of the weak through the subtlety of seduction, lies, and ruin. I really like the core mythology and the look of the Remmanon, a clear departure from the stereotypical devil and one of the more powerful of the Outlander Baatezu. As we begin to reach the pinnacle of Outlander fiendish power, we have the Xerfilstyx, who along with the Mezzikim are perhaps my personal favorite of the Outlander devils, and another very unique fiend that continues a strong trend of fascinating, forgotten 3rd edition devils. This unholy fusion of vile power and disgust stands as tall as 12 feet and weighs in at a massive 1,500 pounds. A terrible and filthy devil, generally only found near and confined to the river Styx, where their prolonged exposure to its fetid waters has made each of them truly insane. The fragmented memories of countless lost souls bombard these devils as they swim below and through the unholy dark waters, something from which they actually derive a twisted form of pleasure, even as the river's dread magic slowly dissolves their minds. In their madness, the Xerfilstyx fervently believe all creatures should sample the water's magic, and that it is their infernal duty to help reveal the secret to any and all they meet. Because of this, even other high-level Baatezu steer clear of these deranged devils. Native to the Nine Hells of Baator, the Xerfilstyx can be found anywhere the river Styx flows, including on other planes, and although they are comfortable at any depth, they tend to stay near the shores, always looking to snatch the unwary. Just one more in a litany of reasons why traveling this river of absolute filth is so dangerous. From the torso up, you might mistake the Xerfilstyx from many other powerful devil types. Its human-like arms and torso are thick, rippling with powerful muscles, and its head is equipped with razor-sharp teeth and fiendish horns. Upon its back jet 2 massive leathery wings that do allow it to take flight, and in fact they look very humanoid as they swim through these forbidden waters. But looking down upon this fiend, under the water's surface, that's where you'll see the true horror. Its lower half a pulsing sack of purple-blue flesh, strikingly similar in appearance and shape to that of a massive and slimy slug. According to the Tomekeeper text, the Xerfilstyx are treacherous and deadly fiends that might normally slot somewhere above an ice devil and below a pit fiend if power were the only metric considered in the infernal ranking of hell. But remember, I said they were insane, not stupid. The Xerfilstyx, with a 16 intelligence, possess some high-level spell abilities to go along with a tail attack that drains blood, and even a breath weapon of boiling blood and water that melts flesh and erodes memories. Indeed, the CR-15 Xerfilstyx stacks up as a top-tier greater devil in terms of abilities and powers. However, it's their warped and demented minds that make them completely unpredictable, and one of the more undisciplined of the greater devils. And as such, they have been strictly excluded from any path of progression by decree of Asmodeus himself, and even the archdevils don't seek to create more of these aberrant and lunatic fiends. But truth be told, I think these guys are awesome. Powerful, unpredictable, maybe the ultimate infernal curveball to throw at a high-level party. We will definitely profile this in the future. My homebrew gears are already spinning. Of all the Outlander fiends we are covering today, perhaps the one I had the most trouble profiling was the Ghargatula. Not on its status in or out of the promotion chain, it's clearly an Outlander devil and belongs as such. But this 3rd edition fiend from the pages of the generally excellent Book of Vile Darkness really feels out of place and, to be blunt, not well thought out, barely feeling like a devil at all. To start, just look at the only official image I could source on this truly massive fiend. You tell me what it's supposed to resemble without reading the official text. I'll go ahead and give you a moment. The Book of Vile Darkness describes this monster as often being mistaken for, are you ready? A dinosaur. Something I just don't get from that single and only official image. So, as you can probably imagine, creating images for this fiend left a lot of room for artistic license, and in my opinion, improvement. I think that's one of the reasons I really like digging up these forgotten fiends. Without a ton of established and common lore, and usually nearly non-existent or very limited visuals, they're a world builder's dream. But let's take a look at what additional official information we do have. Often bound in servitude only to the greatest of devils, these powerful CR-16 fiends are used as guardians to important locations all across the hellish plains. These include palaces, fortresses, vaults, citadels, portals, and even some cathedrals. When not in the employ of a master, they can be found roaming the warmer layers of the Nine Hells and attempting to kill anything they find, including other fiends. The Ghargatula really come across as more of an apex predator of the Hells, more instinctual and beast-like than any form of cunning and scheming level of intelligence that I normally envision when I think devil. Ghargatulas also do not possess much in the way of any magical abilities, save for a feeble once-a-day summoning that has a 75% chance of actually failing. Instead, this massive but dim-witted fiend is a simple but hellish monstrosity that uses their terrible, natural beast-like weapons to great and deadly effect. Standing at over 25 feet in height, with multiple clawed arms and a 15-foot-long tail with a venomous stinger, the Ghargatula is one of the more monstrous and savage of fiends to be sure. Additionally, the Ghargatula has an exceptional scent ability, rivaling anything in the animal kingdom, that allows them to sense incoming stealthy enemies and even sniff out hidden prey or enemies. But of all their natural weapons, the most deadly is their massive and terrifying maw. Filled with many rows of teeth the size of long daggers and short swords, this oversized mouth could easily engulf a medium or large-sized humanoid in one single ferocious bite. The Ghargatula are a near-perfect example of why we don't want to create our ranked hierarchy based off power alone. Roles and intelligence matter, most especially when it comes to devils, and if I were to be forced to place this fiend into the hierarchy despite their power, they would definitely be a lesser devil in my world, but I think they are far more appropriately placed here as an Outlander devil. As we close out this comprehensive volume on the Outlander devils, I'm now forced by my desire to make this the most definitive set of volumes on the lore of the devils and the Nine Hells to cover what is, in my opinion, one of the more frustrating and egregious changes to a devil type seen over all the years and versions. I speak of the Abishai and their 2021 update. As you will see in Volume 7, I spent a great deal of time trying to weave story lore justification for many of the changes and retcons across versions for this lore discovery, but I will not even attempt to do that when it comes to the massive change and empowerment that these former gargoyle-esque dragon-like fiends have seen in the 5th edition. Released in 2021's Mordenkainen's Monsters of the Multiverse, a sourcebook I have several issues with, but we'll leave those for another day, these devils, and man do I want to use that word loosely now, have been completely transformed to rival, in some cases, most of the greater Baatezu. Let's not forget that in some previous versions, the Abishai were in fact part of the Baatezu hierarchy, commonly being the typical next upgrade path during the promotion of a lowly spine devil, where an Abishai would then hope to be promoted to a lowly bearded devil. As quoted on page 111 of the Fiendish Codex 2, and that alignment actually made sense. With 5e, however, these variant colored Abishai now range in power from a challenge rating of 6, which is fine, to that of 19 in what looks like a near copy and paste methodology to mirror that of the chromatic dragons. Honestly, it just feels lazy. So what this means is that a red Abishai that prior to the 2021 release of the Monsters of the Multiverse was a CR 8 Devil with 60 hit points. Now in 5e, it struts around with a 22 AC, almost 300 hit points, and can flex with Pit Fiends and actual full-grown red dragons. Well, it's no wonder that the Abishai are now, canonically speaking in 5e, no longer part of the Infernal Hierarchy, because none of this, in my opinion, really makes any sense. In fact, with this change, they should, in my opinion, no longer be considered devils at all, but canonically, they are. Ultimately, this is the canon now, so it is what it is. But for any world building at my table, some serious thought will be given to the station and power of these new Abishai. Do I fall back to the pre-2021 standing, or are they even present in my world at all? Now, with that for the record rant out of the way, and with me setting aside this wholly unwelcome empowerment, let's move on to those facets of the Abishai lore, as written in Griley's ancient text, that are not impacted by this 5e power gain. The Abishai are a group of fiends that serve the interests of the Nine Hells mostly, but who also divide their loyalty and are considered in many respects as the truest of Outlander and Outsider fiends in Hell. Asmodeus had granted Tiamat and her Abishai fiends the ability to operate outside the normal infernal hierarchy long ago, having their own chain of command and ultimately answering only to the Dragon Queen herself, and, of course, Asmodeus. Each Abishai was once a mortal who somehow won favor with the great dragon Tiamat before death, and as a reward, found their soul transformed into this devil gargoyle-like fusion with strong dragon-like traits, to serve at her pleasure in Avernus. All Abishai consider themselves to be the children of Tiamat and are fanatically loyal to her, often being forced to straddle the lines of loyalty within the Nine Hells, but in the end, the Dragon Queen's fiends will always sacrifice their life for her interests. Tiamat deploys the Abishai as her emissary, sending them to represent her interests in the Hells and across the multiverse. Their responsibilities range from the mundane of servants, messengers, and soldiers to such greater tasks as carrying out assassinations or even leading cults and religious movements on the material plane. Similar to the chromatic dragons on the material plane, each Abishai reflect one of the known color variants of the chromatic dragon heads that make up the great Tiamat, with each color signifying greater power and status among Tiamat and to a lesser extent other Baatezu. From a lore and promotion perspective, in the 3rd edition, it was fascinatingly noted that many scholars mistakenly believed that all Abishai began life as a white variant, and that it was through promotion or even age that they would advance in type and color. However, and notwithstanding my own reservations on the 2021 retcon I just shared with you, according to Griley's centuries-old text on the matter, in truth, each variety of Abishai is a distinct kind of fiend, and those that advance in station actually become another type of fiend entirely, typically thought to be a Baatezu, although even that is left to the promoting devil. However, it must be noted here that this understanding would simply no longer be applicable if you choose to follow the 2021 updated lore as written in 5th edition. And that concludes this Volume 6 remaster, Outlanders in Hell. Well, you've made it this far, so you should complete your Outlander fiend discovery by checking out the Outlander update, profiling 8 more all-new fiends, and paving the way for the full hierarchy of rank-and-file devils coming in Volume 7. If you'd like to support the channel and keep the content sponsor-free, please check out the links below. Free Patreon membership, free Discord access, a Buy Me a Coffee donation link, and if you think I earned it, please like and subscribe. Thanks for listening, and until next time, remember, the only limitation at your table is your imagination.